This is a picture of the three sisters.
Okay.
This is me in the middle, my sister Barbara, and my sister Cynthia. And in the background, you see we're in the middle of an open field. 2 months after this picture was taken, we started planting all the pine trees that make the ceilings in the boat. So in this picture, there's no trees.
And this is you.
That's me in the middle. I was 2.
Nice.
This is another picture of the sisters. I'm again in the middle. There's an extra one there, a cousin.
And this was your courtyard, your garden. Nice.
And we're on a slide. This is, on the farm there's a lake. And when Daddy bought the farm, it already had oak trees that were 20, 30, 40 years old. They were 50 years older than that when they came down in the storm. But in this picture, my uncle, my daddy's youngest brother, and 3 of his friends are pretending to be boxers, prize fighters. So you can see the oak trees in the background, but they were much larger than that when they came down.
Okay, thank you.
And so these trees were much bigger when they came down, 50 years older, but they're the walls in the bar area now.
Alright, thanks. Yeah, I really like this picture, and maybe, yes, I'm going to work with these two maybe. Yes.
Good.
And probably I need to ask you many other questions, but I need to take my camera because I want to record your voice, because I need to make like a story. I'll explain you. But basically, when you told me about it, that you started to draw the trees when you were small, I would like to develop my project into a different one, and I would like to create sort of labels. You know those labels that you can find in a botanic garden? For example, near an oak tree, there's like a label that says oak tree, and then there's the traditional location and explanations and descriptions about the oak. Well, I would like to create those labels for the trees that they are in your boat, but without a proper analytic description of it, but with the stories behind your family, and you know, just to give a different explanation of the tree to people that they come in, so it's a different process, and it's still the work is still in relationship with the first one that I'm going to do, but I would like to develop this concept, so I'm here to ask you a couple of stories behind the trees and stuff that we got in the boat. So let's start with the oak tree. Can you tell me something about it, where it is in the boat, and maybe a story behind it?
The oak trees were on the farm when Daddy bought the farm, so they were already 20 or 30 years old. So they were getting big enough for him to hang ropes from the limbs, so that us little girls, the sisters, could swing.
Okay.
And so we had swings hanging from all of the oak trees.
So did you have 3 swings?
Yes.
Oh wow. It's
And also an oak tree is very, very strong. So we had cows on the farm. So you could use the oak tree to nail the fence to, because it wouldn't move. So when we were cutting the wood to put on the walls, we found some of the wood that had holes in them, and we were looking because the holes were stained sort of dark gray, almost black, and we were trying to decide, is that where an insect drilled out? But oak is so hard, an insect couldn't make a hole. So we looked, and the holes were in patterns, pairs, and it turned out to be the staples where my daddy nailed the fence rows to the oak trees. So I saved one piece of that oak.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What about the pine tree?
The pine trees on the boat, most of the pine on the boat, my sisters and I planted when we were 2, 3, and 4. And it came down 50 years later during the storm. So they were native pines that we planted, so they weren't designed to grow fast. So they're really have a lot of strength to them, and they grew very tall.
And they are those ones that you planted.
And that all in this open field here.
Right.
We planted pine trees everywhere.
Okay, your father really liked pine trees. Okay.
And then the pine tree out in the garden, that was from a neighbor. And that tree was planted by a man who is about 80 now. And he planted it, I think, when he was 13. So it was over 60 years old when it came down. And it was in his mother's yard. And he asked us if we would take that tree with us to Holland. So that tree was very, very large. So all the benches and all the walls in the garden are made out of one tree.
And do you remember any stories behind the cherry tree and where it is in the boat?
The cherry is it's not a very majestic tree in the States. It's sort of a small tree, but they're really pretty and they have a very nice waxy leaf on them. So even though they weren't good for selling or anything, Daddy kept them because they were really pretty and they kept their leaves year round and they had nice little berries on them. So many of them went down during the storm and we just had to collect them up. So what you get out of a cherry tree is a small piece of wood. You don't get the huge beams like here from the pine trees. So all of the countertops are the cherry and it's small pieces put together.
Okay, so they are in the bar.
The bar and down in the lounge as well as in every bathroom on board.
Okay, well, I'll check it out later. And do you remember any stories or fact about cherry trees or something like that?
Not so much the cherry tree, but we have two other kinds of trees on board that have good stories. There's one bedroom that's all hickory, and the hickory tree was just below the pecan orchard. And the hickory nut is a nice sweet nut, but it has very little meat and it's all shell. So it looks a lot like a walnut, but it's not nearly as fleshy. So you don't bother with them. You let the squirrels eat those. But when they fall to the ground, the shell is very hard. And because they were on an incline down the hill, the wind would carry as the nuts fell, they would carry them all over the side of the hill. So when you started to walk down the hill, you could easily slip on all these round shells. So we would take pieces of cardboard, like that appliances came in. Your refrigerator comes wrapped in cardboard. We would go to the appliance store and get big sheets of plywood, cardboard, and we would lay it on that hill, and then we would run, and all the hickory nuts under it would just act like a conveyor belt, and we'd slide all the way down the hill.
It was like a skateboard.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Good. What about the cedar tree?
Cedar tree is a very, very slow growing tree. And we had a good many of those on the place, and they came down too. And the type of cedar that we had is an aromatic cedar. So we used them to line all of the closets.
Do you remember any facts? Do you have any memories behind it and where it is in the boat?
Well, nothing bothers a cedar, no bugs or anything. So when you have that sort of a tree lining the closets or wherever you put it, then you're not going to have mold and mildew, and you're not going to have bugs or anything in the closet. So on a boat where you normally, when you close the door and you have an enclosed space, then it just becomes damp and smelly and all. But with the cedar in all those places, we don't have that.
Oh, wow, interesting. What about the pecan tree? Where is it in the boat? And what's the story or fact behind it?
Well, the orchard that was on the farm was from a tree that my dad had planted in his father's backyard when he was 7. And they walked 2 miles to get that tree and bring it back. So that tree grew majestic on Arco Lane. And then when my dad bought his farm, he got little trees from under that tree to plant a pecan orchard that had 13 trees in it, and they all came down during the storm. I think you have a picture of one next to one of my daddy's cars that was hit by the pecan tree. We used all of those trees for the wheelhouse as well as for the dining table.
What about the poplar? Where is it in the boat? And do you remember any stories or do you have any memories about it?
I have one bedroom that's poplar, and the poplar is a very majestic tree. It's very white on the inside and is easily sanded and produces a nice finish for things that you want to paint. We have one bedroom that's completely poplar, and then in the below deck lounge, all of the wood that's painted black, shiny black, to mimic Art Deco is made from the poplar. And that tree's real tall and stout, and it has limbs that produce a flower that's called a tulip. It looks very much like a tulip.
Okay, and behind that tree, do you remember?
Well, that was Daddy's favorite tree, I think.
It was your favorite.
He could look out his bedroom window and see the tops of poplars that were below the house is on a hill, and they were below the house, so he could look and see that, and
so do you
made him
think
feel good.
That's why he really liked that tree,
Mm-hmm.
or?
He loved the beauty of it because the tulips have sort of a orange and a little purple and white. They're quite nice, quite attractive, yes.
Okay, I think we've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Have our
No.
coffee.